Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife, about issues that matter, and sharing fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. My guest today is Alexandra Boyd, who has so many roles I don't really know where to start. She's an actor in Mr. Holland's Opus, Titanic and Coronation Street, to name just a very few. She's a screenwriter and film director, a video games icon, a singer and a campaigner. She's also my friend, and together we won Gospel Choir of the Year in 2017 with our choir, big shout out, Big Sing Gospel Voices. She also has the most romantic tale to tell of crossing a huge ocean in the name of love in midlife. We're going to dig into all of that, and I can't wait to catch up. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. It's always interesting to see or hear people's reflection of the person they perceive you to be. And that's a lovely thing to say. There's some nice things there. Thank you. Thank you.
You've done quite a lot in your life, haven't you?
I've lived a long time, so there's been plenty of time to pack it all in. Yes.
So, because I don't know what's been going on for the last year or so, we're going to dig into that first, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
I want to know, why are you back in the US after so many years away? What happened?
Well, all right. So we have to go back to 1992. When I moved to Seattle, I had split from my husband, who'd brought me to the United States. His job had brought us back to the United States for him. And I drove across the United States with my cat in a car from Florida to Seattle. And I got a little job in a dinner theater. And there was this very, very gregarious, funny young man in the show with me. And there was definitely a connection, but he had a girlfriend. So that was kind of the end of that. And then life went on. I moved to Los Angeles. I lived there for 10 years. And we sort of stayed in touch over the time. But he subsequently got married. He very amazingly survived cancer twice. So I would check in with Drew like, oh, you're still alive then, right? We'd make this joke because you can joke with him about that because yes, he survived cancer. And over the years sort of checked in with each other, and it just was never a viable proposition. And the last time I saw him, he promised me, he said, when I'm free, I will get on a plane and come and find you wherever you are. And I thought, oh, that's nice. And I went on with my life, and 6 years went by in which I wrote and directed my feature film. And that was a huge undertaking. So I had the time and the space to do that. And then on the 29th of December, 2019, I think we can all remember just before everything changed, I got a phone call, a message on my phone from him saying, it's Drew, give me a call, it's very important. And it was about 2:00 in the afternoon. I thought it must be really early in the morning in Seattle. Oh, maybe, he can't sleep. So I was at work, so I waited till I got home and I returned the call, and he was at Heathrow Airport. He had just landed and he was looking for me.
So he was not sleepless in Seattle, he was in London.
Yes, he did what he said he was going to do.
Wow.
So I took a deep breath. Well, first of all, I didn't believe him. And then, of course, I had to believe him because he showed up at my front door. All 6'2" of him standing in my kitchen. Like, those moments when you want something really, really badly and you can visualize it, you can feel that what that would feel like. And then, over the years I had done that, and then I had just put that feeling away because it was the stuff that only happens in movies. What would it feel like if this man that you have very sincere and deep feelings for, but it's just not going to work out this time. So you pack it away and you get on with your life. And that's what I did. So, we joke that I didn't really wait for him. I just got on with other things. And, sort of referring to how I felt in my mid 50s, I really had made a very clear decision that I was happy to be alone. I was very involved in this new career of film directing, which takes up a great deal of your headspace and heart space. And I was so content to have come to this place where another part of my head wasn't seeking a partner. I saw it all around me. I saw, all the dating apps, all the women who felt like, well, I deserve somebody, or why don't I have somebody? And it's so unfair. And to be honest, I saw a lot of my married friends not terribly happy in their marriages. So I thought, well, I've got this other way to occupy my heart and my mind. So I had made a great deal of peace with that. So when he showed up, I was a little bit annoyed because it's like, mate, I've processed this. Now I've got to unpick it all and think about being with you, which of course, and rolling back to the end of that year, he stayed for 2 weeks. It was amazing. And then he went home for 5 weeks, and then he came back again for 2 more weeks. And we were discussing, me coming for Easter holidays and one step at a time sort of thing. And then on March the 17th, they were announcing that they were closing the borders in the US. And I realized if I didn't go very quickly, I wouldn't get to go at all. And I wouldn't get to find out what this next part of my life was going to be, if it was going to be something. So I quit my job. I had a retail job and they weren't very pleased, but I'm sorry. I had to do what I had to do. And I changed the flight I had for Easter. But I was sort of standing there on the Tuesday morning talking to this actress who was staying in our house. She was doing a show in the West End that had just closed. Her husband was driving down from Nottingham to pick her up and take her back. It was like my housemate, she was coming back from Leeds from a workshop that she'd cancelled because somebody in the workshop had been in contact with somebody who tested positive for COVID. So if you can just take your mind back to those early moments when we had no idea what was happening, but some of us, not me, some of us were aware that the walls were closing in. And so Tina, the actress who was waiting for her husband, she looked at me, she looked at the clock, she said, Alexandra, if you're going to catch a plane to Seattle today, you should probably leave now. So I went upstairs and I started throwing stuff into a little suitcase, because I'd started a suitcase that wasn't a lifetime suitcase. It was a 3-week visit suitcase, and called a taxi and got to the airport. They changed my flight. I was watching as the flight to Seattle was counting down and leaving. She said, no, we can't get you on that. Give me another city that's near Seattle. I went, Portland. She went, no, don't fly there. I said, Vancouver. She went, yeah, we can get you to Vancouver at 4:00 if you leave at 4:00. I said, will Canada let me in? She said, we think so. So I took that flight. I went straight to the champagne bar and had some sushi and champagne to calm my nerves. Got on it's a 10-hour flight, rented a car in Vancouver, got to the border. Now, I'm an American citizen, so because from when I lived here before, I became a citizen. I waved my passport at them. He said you would not be going over the border if you did not have this passport. Drove another 2 hours to the Bainbridge Island ferry in Seattle, caught the very last ferry of the night at 1:35 a.m. And he was waiting for me in his truck in the McDonald's car park on the other side of the Puget Sound. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. My goodness, I thought it would be good. I didn't know it'd be quite that good. So is this going to be your next movie?
Well, interestingly enough, when we reconnected about 7 or 8 years ago, I did start writing a movie, and it was more to do with these guys that kept showing up in my life, either from the past. There'd been a smattering of them. Like, oh, I wonder what Alexandra's doing these days. And I'm sort of divorced, and I'm sort of, she was fun back in the day, and he was one of them, and I was kind of a bit annoyed because I just thought, I'm not a plaything. I'm not a midlife crisis pick you up. And I sort of started to write a story about a woman who lived on a converted barge on the River Thames, which is one of my dreams. And she has to choose between these three semi-fictional, semi-based on real people amalgamation of a couple of guys over there. There were these three characters, and he was definitely one of them. And I had to stop writing it because as I was writing these scenes that were literally lifted out of my life, sometimes the dialogue was just written already itself. It just used to make me really sad to think that the potential was there, but never the outcome. And so I left it. I stopped writing it. And then, of course, I didn't have to because it turned into real life. I don't know. I don't know if people really enjoy a happy ending because
Oh, my land, of course they will. What are you talking about? Yes,
Well,
of course. We
yes, they
want
do.
this movie. We want you to play yourself, please.
Well,
we
I'm
want
too
the whole
old.
shebang.
Well, I'm too old to play myself now. So anyway, that's yes.
No, you're not.
No, I'd have to play myself in my present iteration. But no, and also,
No,
to
but we
put
want this story, this one.
this one,
Yeah,
this
this
one.
one.
Yes, yes.
Brilliant.
And
You
listen,
couldn't make it up, could you?
no, you couldn't. And the thing about Drew, he's like a 24-year-old in a 54-year-old's body. That's what I'm dealing with, which
Oh,
is
we like a younger man.
we do. Well, he's a little bit younger, but he's got this wonderful childlike devil may care spirit, which if you're not necessarily that person, I mean, I take risks, I'm very adaptable, but I would never have got on a plane not knowing if showing up at somebody's door their partner would answer the door. He said I was prepared for that outcome. I said, you could have called me. There is Facebook. There is. He said, yes, but it wouldn't have been half as much fun, would it? And that's who I live with now, and it's never a dull moment. That's what. And I will say now, listen. The reality of the fact is that I had made the decision to be self-sufficient and alone and happy, and it's been a big adjustment to consider somebody else's needs and desires, and to have a negotiation about this or that or the other. It comes quite hard for me, I think, sometimes, but I am getting used to it. It's lovely. It's lovely to have such, and we laugh all the time, and we realize that in our mid-50s we have a wonderful opportunity to not start with a clean slate, because that's impossible, but we have a wonderful opportunity to create something for the rest of our lives that's free from secrets and issues. And if the issues come up, you're mature enough to talk about them and work them through. And if there's an argument, that's not it. It's not over. It's just it's just a difference of opinion. And coming to a relationship, a brand new relationship this late in life, is a different set of challenges than when you're in your 20s, that sort of thing. That's what I'm learning anyway.
How utterly wonderful. I just love it. And I guess there's a bit of added pressure on you, isn't there? Because you haven't actually got a lot of room. Because where are you living?
Oh, right. So, well, we're living on 6 acres of forest, which is a lot of room,
a lot of land.
A lot of land. But we moved here in September. Okay, so I'm not in Seattle. I'm on the Olympic Peninsula, which is this beautiful piece of wild and woolly landscape. There are towns and there's electricity and so on and so forth, but it's a very remote area and lots of water, lots of mountains. So we found this gulch. It's called Millie's Gulch, and there's a little stream that runs through it, and 6 acres of trees. So we moved on. We didn't have electricity. We were using a generator in this motorhome, which we bought for like $15,000, and I painted everything white because it was all beige and horrible. So, but it's not horrible now, and we're in this motorhome while we design and build a real house. But we came here with no flushing toilet, no electricity. We've got Wi-Fi now. That's why we had to wait on this podcast, because I was waiting for a decent signal. It came with a half-finished tiny home. So we've been building that. Drew's a builder and a contractor. So he's done a magnificent job on this tiny home, which we will sell, and we'll get some cash from that to build what we call our one-day house, because one day we will have a house.
So you're also living, although you're not moving in your motorhome, I have noticed there is definitely a trend for midlife women to want to live in motorhomes, but usually they're moving around in them rather than
Yes,
staying
yes. Well, of
put.
course, you're referencing Nomadland, which
Yeah,
is about
yeah.
that. It's actually set 10 years ago, 12 years ago, after the 2008 crash, when so many people lost everything. She's lost her husband as well. And we have been on a trip in the motorhome. We did a sort of loop down to California and back again. And you stay in these RV parks, which is another movie, and it's another movie besides Nomadland, where these people are full timers. They're very clearly they're living in a unit that can move around, but they don't go anywhere. They've sort of downsized everything, and that's been quite a way for retirees here and people who just don't want all that clutter and stuff anymore. But some financial circumstances for some people means that they have to live in these minivans, and that would be challenging. I think we do have a living space. We have an eating space. There's a sleeping space, and not they it doesn't overlap, but some of those tiny little vans, which have been beautifully renovated to be fit for purpose, yes, I think I would find that challenging with two of us. And Drew is 6'2". We don't even want to live in the tiny home because he just bonks his head on everything, and he keeps going, "We can't have this here." I said, "Look, somebody, okay, a small person is going to have to buy this house." But I would say, if I was a single woman and I that was an option to live in, it would be ideal. A single person living in a little tiny house with just enough storage to keep all your stuff in after you've got rid of a lot of stuff. I think that's who I'm hoping will buy the house, the tiny house. Anyway.
But it's a midlife thing over here as well. I keep meeting women who really like the idea of just going off, and I personally would also like to go off in a van, not to live in it forever, but definitely to go on a trip.
Yes.
So
Well, I think what
yeah.
it does, and what I know, like for instance, I don't have. This is going to sound so gauche. I don't have a dishwasher, and I have a tiny space to wash up in. And every night I was like, oh, I've got to do the washing up, and I can't wait till I have a dishwasher again. Isn't that all? Like, that's how
Yeah.
bouge. That's how bouge it makes you. Like, I'm so bourgeois because I don't have a dishwasher. But when I have one, I'm gonna like love it so much, and I'm gonna take
Yeah.
care of it. I'm gonna appreciate it and be so grateful for my dishwasher. I know that when I have more space and when I'm living in the house that we've created and designed, I'm going to appreciate it so much more. And so that's something to look forward to in the future.
Well, that is some story, Alexandra. That is just amazing, and I'm
And
so glad to
something,
have heard it.
well,
Wonderful.
well, thank you. And this thing about we, and I know you're expounding it in Magnificent Midlife, the idea that we never stop growing, we never stop changing, and I, gosh, I hope that never happens to me. And just because of the life I've had as an actress and now a director and a writer, I've had to be adaptable. I realize I have had to adapt to every situation. And this is just, it's a very dramatic one, but it's, you know, so I know some of my friends were slightly horrified that now I was stuck in America. And are you coming back? And have you severed your ties? And no, because I've lived here before. I've lived in other places. I've lived in other people's houses for, for reasons of, finance, or I've had to rent out my house because I've been traveling, or whatever it is. I realize without knowing it that I've always been a very adaptable person. And I think if you can keep that going as you get older, I think it's easy to slip into, well, the kids are gone now. I don't have any children, but I observe this with my friends. The kids are gone now. What's next? And they haven't got a plan. And so they're waiting for life to happen. And sometimes you have to make it happen for yourself, and keep the changes and keep an interest and new project. Listen, I'm talking for myself. That it works for me. New projects, new challenges. That's, I realize, what keeps me going.
So tell us about your big project that you started a few years ago, when you went behind the camera and you wrote and directed your own film, which is available on Amazon Prime for anybody that wants to go and watch it. So tell us about that.
Well,
Tell us about Widow's Walk.
Widow's Walk became what they call here a passion project, because because it had to be my passion, and I had to be utterly obsessed with the notion of making a feature film. Otherwise, it wasn't going to get done. And, I know we're all now aware of how few women there are directing feature films. And, one of my other ambitions is to help to change that, not just by myself, but encompassing and encouraging other women to do the same. But I had been an actress for almost going on 35 years, and I had a great deal of experience and a little bit of success, and I had enjoyed it very much, until somebody asked me to direct a short film one day, for one day shoot. And I thought, how hard can it be, as long as I don't make a fool of myself, which is my biggest fear, in front of all these people who make films all day long. And I had the best time, and nobody guessed I'd never done it before. And I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And it began from that, really. I slowly unhinged myself from pursuing acting, and really, really wanted to make films. And I had written this big, epic World War I Olympic boxing script. So I'm in Cannes with the script that I've written, and this wonderful, eminent, and really kind executive producer. He was listening to my story, and he said, "Stop, Alexandra, they're not going to give you the money to make this film as your first film. Have you got a script that is 5 characters, 1 location, preferably genre, like a sci-fi or horror, or something that you can make first? Go away, make it with your friends for £100,000, which is still a lot of money." And I said, no, I don't. I've got this script. And he said, well, that's what you need to do to get with the program. And I knew he was right. So I went home, and I started writing a ghost story that is set in a remote Suffolk beach house. I'm from Suffolk, so it felt I should write something from where I'm from. This beach house in Suffolk, and it's about a woman whose husband has been killed in Afghanistan. She takes a little boy there, and her grief evokes the spirit of a woman who has lost her love, but during the Second World War. So these two women are connected by this common grief, and the story is about how that unfolds. And it took me about 2 years to write the script, about another 2 years to raise the money through family and friends and a Kickstarter, and then another 2 years to edit it, because we had to do it as and when we had little little bits of money to pay the composer or pay the sound designer. And but the happy ending to that story is that we sold it directly to Amazon, and it's out there in the world for everybody to, well, in Europe and UK to watch. And it was the sense of achievement, I can't tell you, is huge. To the fact that any movie gets made is something of a miracle. And it was not just me. I was the captain of the ship, but I had many people along the way. Angels and allies is what I've heard them described as, the angels and allies that come along to support you for part of the journey, half of the journey, all of the journey, so that you can accomplish 90 minutes of film.
And it is remarkable. It's a gorgeous film. So everybody go and watch it. And I went to the premiere at Bafta, didn't I? And
Yes,
it was
yes.
so wonderful.
Well,
It was
that was
just
my
brilliant.
that was my gift to everybody who contributed at the Kickstarter level. And yeah, it was just, I couldn't say thank. That was my only way of saying thank you.
But it was fantastic, and I remember actually that the audience was full of our choir, wasn't it? There was like
Yes,
this big bank of choir
yes,
people,
yes. I
this
have.
gospel
Yeah,
singers.
there's three members of the choir became investors in the film. That's how supported I felt by the choir. Yes, yeah. But I actually, looking through that audience, my whole life was there. There were friends that I'd known from kindergarten all the way through to my mum. It was really there. It's like, I think the only thing I can compare it to is your wedding, where you just invite everybody that you know, that you want to share in the joy of something having been created. It was yeah. And of course now I'm really keen to do whatever the next thing is, but the last year has been very challenging for the film industry and the entertainment industry and theatre and everything. It's been really tough on everybody, I know, but of course I felt it very much in my industry.
And how did you secure Virginia?
Oh, that's a great story. Okay, so Virginia McKenna, OBE, Olivier winner, and Olivier Award and BAFTA winner. We needed an 83-year-old actress, and there's an underwater sequence in the film, and I had been talking with an underwater cameraman, Dan Travers, who was telling me, he was giving me so much advice about how to put an 11-year-old under the water, because there's a little boy that has to do this underwater sequence. And we were auditioning the boys, and his son was exactly the right age, so he auditioned for the part of Noah. And unbeknownst to me, he rehearsed his audition with his grandma. And that was that. And then I get a call from Virginia McKenna's agent, who said, I'm Virginia McKenna's agent, and she has just told me she's just read the most amazing script, because she was rehearsing with her grandson who auditioned for it. And I knew it was a bit of a. I said, "Oh, would wait a minute, do you think Virginia would be in my film? Because how old is she? Well, she's 83." And I had just seen a documentary with her and her other son, Will Travers, because she's the patron and the founder of the Born Free Foundation. And she's in Africa, and she's climbing over this rock, and she's got a mic on, and she doesn't know it's on. And he's trying to tell Mum, go, stop telling me what to do. I can get to the top of the rock. I'm absolutely fine. And that's how she was the whole time. She has to do this sequence where she had to fall in the grass. And everybody was so concerned. We need to get a mat for Virginia. We could put, somebody in her little coat, and we could body double it. No, absolutely not. She was going to do it all herself. Oh, she was just wonderful. She was so wonderful and just lovely in the film. She's just perfect in the film. Just the right contrast to Eve, the Miranda Raisin, who plays the mother. Oh, she's just, what a coup. What a
I
treat.
never knew that story. I never knew. My goodness me. Talk about serendipity. It's about the universe just opening up and delivering for you.
Yes,
Wow.
that's exactly right. And it happened. I don't know if it's because we were so earnest and we were such a small little film and such a small operation. You shoot these little arrows out there of, well, it'd be really nice if we could find that element. It took me 2 years to find the owners of the house. I had found the house, and I would drive over there and knock on the door. There'd be nobody there because it was a weekend house for a couple in London, and I'd leave my business card on the door. I realized I was leaving it on the wrong door. They didn't use the front door, they used another door. And and it's very weird to say, oh, hi, excuse me, can I shoot a ghost story in your house? It's not a great way to introduce yourself. So I connected to the owners because I was at a birthday party whinging on about my film and how I wanted to shoot it in Suffolk. And this guy who's a photographer says, oh, my friend has a house in Suffolk. Where is this house you're talking about? I said, oh, it's in this tiny village right on the edge of nowhere. You wouldn't know. He said, yeah. Oh, no, that village, that's where my mate has his house. So I ran upstairs and I've got a photograph of it. He said, I took that photograph. That's my friend's house.
Oh my goodness me.
He was
spooky. See, this is all the spookiness of this ghost story.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be. I could go. Miranda Raisin, the lead actress, she's been in Spooks, and she played Kenneth Branagh's wife twice in 2 different plays in the season he did in the West End. And she said, oh, I live in Suffolk. Oh, I really want to do this because I just live up the road. I have a house just up the road. I could drive to work. Oh, and you have a ferry. There's a ferry scene in it. My dad used to be the ferryman to Orford Ness. Oh, I really connect with this story. I'd love to do it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I was very aware. We have been very aware this whole time that this is probably the first and the last time I will have this much control and this amount of serendipity in a production. I had so much say in the outcome. When there's a lot more money involved and a lot more people invested in their return on investment and in the outcome, you get far less choices and you have to be much more contained. And in this, Charlie Brooker, who wrote all the Black Mirror series, I've heard him say almost exactly the same thing. At the beginning of your career, you can do exactly what you want. Then you do what everyone else wants for about 20 years. And then at the end of your career, when they all think you're marvelous, you can go back to doing what you want again. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that all those lovely things happened, and we couldn't have predicted them or made them happen. They happened from serendipity. Yeah.
And it was quite a big thing for Suffolk, I remember, wasn't it? The fact that you'd set it there and
yes, and sort of being embraced by people having their landscape, because I've shot a lot of the tone and the personality of the landscape, because it's very flat, like Norfolk's very flat, but very bleak and beautiful and grey. I know it sounds horrible, but I love the sort of the desaturated palette of the sky and the sea and the beach, the stones on the beach, and the house itself is all those colors, and it's just very indicative of that place. And if you're from there, that's why everybody responded to the dig, because they're like, oh, and the accents, and because we don't see East Anglia portrayed very often in film, and that was a nice opportunity to do that.
So we just had a little interlude, didn't we? Because I said, so is Drew using a power tool? Because I could hear something in the background. And you said, no, it's my
pugs. I have 2 pug puppies. Oh, and they've just woken up because I said pug puppies. But they snore.
But they were snoring.
They snore. I honestly, when I'm on Zoom or on phone calls, I have to sort of preempt it. I should have preempted it, going, when you hear that little rumbling, it's a pug snoring, because people who know me know I'm an absolute pug lover, obsessed with
I
pugs.
know, and now you have two,
I know I
don't
have
you?
two, yes, and yeah, they're a handful.
I
But
think they
they're
probably
very
need their own YouTube channel, actually. The
well.
Pugs
They
in the Woods.
Yeah, well, they've got an Instagram account. It's called Pugs
Have
of Millie's
they?
Gulch. Yeah, we have an
Oh,
Instagram account which is just basically photographs of them in the gulch, because it's Pugs of Millie's Gulch. But they are, and then we go to hardware stores, because we're building all the time. We go to hardware stores. We've been to two places now that have their own Instagram, and they take pictures of Willie and Millie, and then we get
William Lilly.
posted on their Instagram account and tagged as Pugs of Millie's Gulch. So yeah,
Brilliant.
we're making a social media presence happen with our pugs.
Fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic. I know how much you love pugs. I remember that. So when I saw
Oh,
you'd got them, I was like, yay! She
yes,
got the
I
man,
know.
she's got the pug, she's got the motorhome. She's like
Yes,
on her way.
I am. I'm living the dream. Yes.
You are living the dream. Oh my goodness. So let's talk about you've shifted a little bit into campaigning, haven't you? So I know you want to talk about your campaign. So tell us about
Yes.
that.
Okay. So I don't have any children. And don't be sad for me, because I'm fine with that. And I realize I made that decision when I was very young. If I wanted to pursue acting, I had to be free to make decisions for myself. And I've never been particularly maternal, and it worked out just fine. And as I've matured in the industry, I see that many of my friends have had to stop being performers and creative people because they had children. And because my industry doesn't support women with children. You have to sort of take time out and come back, if you're lucky, if you have the time and the finances to start again in midlife. So that's one part of the impetus to start Artemisia's Daughters. And so I have nobody to leave my vast fortune to. So I'd always sort of mentioned that I could leave it all to the pug rescue, which seems a little silly, or I could start a foundation that empowers and inspires all women, but young women, women of all ages, to get more involved in the film industry. Because I realized that as I was coming up, I didn't see any women directing. I can count on one hand the amount of female directors I have been directed by, and three of them were in the theatre. I did not see enough women doing that job, and I know if I had, I probably would have come to directing sooner. And I've had a bit of a twinge about that. Like, gosh, I just wish I'd started directing 20 years ago, not 10 years ago. But even on Coronation Street, when I saw that female director, she was having a horrible time. It was very clear that she was sort of she was being tested, and we've got a female director today, and all of the crew, they were trying to be kind, but she was very much under the microscope, and it did not look like a good experience to me at all. And so I want to create a platform where young women will do film competitions, so women can make films. We'll create workshops with women who are already in the industry, and not just directing, but producing and writing, cinematographers, composers. I mean, the list goes on of how few women are doing those jobs in my industry. And it's either because they think they're too technical. Like, another thing I thought about directing was, I'm going to have to know all about the camera and f-stops and lenses. No, I don't. It's nice if you do, but the technology is changing so much that I personally could not keep up. But who does? The cinematographers, the guys who love the cameras and and the technical side of it, and light. They love light. So my job is going, well, I'd really like this scene to have this atmosphere and this feeling to it and these colors. And they go, oh yeah, well, what you need to do is slap one of them on there and put that up there and move that round there. And then you look at the monitor and they go, do you mean like that? And I go, oh, I don't know, but yes, and no, it's even more beautiful, Diana. I didn't have to have the technical language. I just needed to have the script, the characters, the setting, all of those things. My job is to find the tone and the emotion in the story. And when you've written the story, that's easier. You're connected to it. So I just want to sort of pass on what I've learned in midlife to young women or other women in midlife who go, I've been a makeup artist for 25 years, but I'd like to have a crack at producing or screenwriting. And they just, anything, to use your skill set from one career to another or start a new career. I just want to create the resources. So to start with, we've got a website and we're inviting people to follow us on Instagram. But already, because there were so many women that were nominated for Oscars and BAFTAs this year in all the categories, all the departments. And we tagged them all right before the Oscars. We tagged all of the female Oscar nominees, and two of them are going to speak to me on my podcast, which is going to be an archive of women talking about their job, their experiences in the film industry to encourage those coming up. And I can't wait to get started on that.
How exciting. I think that is the power of women and the power of connections. You can actually reach out and they will respond. That's just brilliant, isn't it?
Yes. And it's a little overwhelming. I wonder if you felt this at the beginning of midlife, was that, well, you have this idea and it percolates around and you bounce it off a couple of people and they go, yeah, that's a good idea. And then you realize how much work is involved in actually creating whatever it's going to be. The initial push out of the program or the foundation or the organization or the idea. You have to be very clear about what it's going to be. Then all of a sudden there's this tipping point where people are coming to you and they're like, can I be part of what you have created? And you don't quite know when that happens. But when it happens quickly, you have to go, oh, bloody hell, I better get myself together and sort myself out. And you've been an incredible inspiration to me for that, because you're inspiring women who don't necessarily have a place to go to share those bits of information, or have a whinge, or have an inspiring story to share, because there's not necessarily anybody else around them who cares about that story. And look at the resources we have to share information, and it feels like, why not?
Thank you. That's lovely. I mean, that is what I want to do. I just want to share stories of women in midlife to really show other women what's possible. And I love, everything you've done. But I think this latest year, the fact that you gave up your life here and you went after something, you took a chance. I think that is just so inspiring, and it's so wonderful to hear that these things are possible. You can have this, big, amazing story, and you can be living the dream, with the pugs, with the man, with the motorhome. It's possible. I think that's what's so lovely.
Well, I think, and again, I can only talk from my own experience and what I observe. I think fear holds a lot of people back, and I won't ever say that I'm a brave person and I don't experience fear, but I do remember sitting on the flight to Vancouver for 10 hours, thinking, okay, this is a little bit crazy, but what's the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work out. It's another heartbreak, which I've experienced before and I've survived before. But if I hadn't tried, I never would have known. So I had to do it. And I have moved countries a number of times in my life. I had decided I didn't want to do it again, but here I was. And I was moving back to the US, so it wasn't like a complete unknown. And I can just say that if you can just pack away the fear and ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could happen? And the worst thing that would have happened was that I'd have just had to find myself a little job and a little flat somewhere and isolate for a year, or sneak back. Didn't they open the flights a little bit in the summer? I'd have snuck back. And the thing is, my housemate sold her house in London where I was living. So that got taken away as well. You just sort of learn to go with it. You have to. What choice do you have? And, and I see a lot of my friends going through cancer treatments. They have far bigger obstacles. That's another thing I've noticed in midlife is you see people facing illnesses that we never thought about when we were younger. And I'm living with somebody who survived cancer twice in his 20s. So he is utterly fearless. And that's kind of inspiring, because he just goes, nothing will be as bad as that was, as facing that was. But when you're older and the stories, I just heard, I didn't know him very well, but Tony Armatrading was an actor who was in a circle of friends of mine, and he just passed away from cancer. And you just, it's there, it's tangible. So when you're in midlife and you might have a life that could be cut short in 6 months. I mean, Helen McCrory, I was devastated. I could cry now thinking about Helen McCrory, who I wanted so desperately to be in this television series I've written. She was the main character all the time, and to not ever have that opportunity. And we've lost 20 or 30 years of her performances that we could have had. She was going to be our Maggie Smith, our Judi Dench, without a doubt. And to so cruelly, two small children and a wonderful husband, and that to happen. I just feel so lucky. I feel so lucky that I'm in this moment, having this experience, these new experiences, and making the most of them without fear. And that's the hardest part, is the no fear part.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe or follow, share it, and I'd love a 5-star review. It really helps other listeners find the podcast. You can find out more information about this episode in the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you can access one-to-one mentoring with me, my membership program, and other resources to help make your midlife magnificent. Make the most of your next chapter. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.